Dennis, when you speak, press that.
Good morning. This is the time and place of the zoning hearing for June 13th, 2011. My name is Roger Kiesel, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have one case on today's agenda, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panel located directly behind me. There is one variance on the agenda today. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.43 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if four required findings are present. And these findings are that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship, inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. The second finding is that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not generally apply to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. The third finding is that the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And finally, that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Findings. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Public notice. Notification of the hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices which were mailed to property owners within 500 feet of the subject property. There was a notification physically posted on the subject site in question, and notices were placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I'll read the description of the application and the request. Then I'll read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. Then I'll ask the case planner to make a brief overview of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward and speak, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time period. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, clearly stating both their name and address, and they will be given 3 minutes, 3-minute time limit. Finally, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments, if desired, in response to the testimony, and will be given 5 minutes to speak on that. The hearing officer the hearing will be closed, and the case will then be taken under submission. Decision. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice either by speaking at the hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Appeals. Under the appeals provision of Title 30, Chapter 30.62, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone who wishes to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from the Building and Safety section located at 633 East Broadway, first floor. Speaker cards. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker's forms which have been provided by the front door and submit it to our assistant. Everyone should know that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are recorded on tape as part of the public record. Okay, as I mentioned before, we have one case on the agenda today. It's Standards and Setback Variance case number PVR 2010-005. It's located at 4363 Lauderdale Avenue. The applicant is Franco Naravian. The property owner is David Kern. The case planner is Dennis Joe. And I'll first go into any departmental comments. I didn't receive any other communications from interested property owners. Did you, Dennis? Okay. So I will just read the comments. The Neighborhood Services Division, in response to our request, stated that Neighborhood Services has a code enforcement case on this property, which has been referred to the City Attorney's Office. The following corrections should be made as conditions of any variance approvals. And those desired conditions are as follows. All structures must be secured to prevent unlawful entry and weather damage until renovations have been completed. The second requested condition, the variance for the garage, a secondary use, should be conditioned upon the renovation and occupancy of the dwelling, the primary use. All required building permits must be obtained and finalized. The property owner, and the final suggested condition, the property must be maintained at all times free of junk, debris, and overgrown and/or dead vegetation during the renovation process. Following the renovation, live vegetation must be installed in all required landscape areas and maintained at all times. Most of the other departments just had standard conditions or no comments at all. And then the final one is from the Traffic and Transportation Division. Staff offers the following comments for informational purposes only. The first comment was the substandard size of the garage could result in fewer than 2 vehicles being able to park in the garage. If so, on-street parking would be required to satisfy the residents' parking demand. And then the second comment was not providing 20 feet between the garage and the property line, back of sidewalk, eliminates the ability to park 2 vehicles in the driveway between the garage and the property line. In addition, a motorist backing out of the garage lacks the necessary sight distance to see a pedestrian walking on a sidewalk, as well as a potentially moving vehicle next to the near curb face on 5th Street. So those were their comments. And as I mentioned before, I didn't receive any other comments from the public. So why don't we go to Mr. Joe for a staff presentation.
Good morning, hearing officer. This property is 4363 Lauderdale Avenue. The proposal is an application to maintain an existing detached stone garage without providing, 1, an interior dimensions for 2 covered parking spaces, 2, minimum width of 2 single-car garage doors, 3, minimum length of a driveway, and 4, for this garage to be located in the required 6-foot street side setback. As part of this project, a DRB application was submitted concurrently and is pending to be scheduled of a potential approval of this variance application. The description provided in the staff report for this DRB application in the future will match what the description is on the variance application. The description of the existing property is approximately 7,936 square feet. It's located in the R1 zone. It's located on the northeast corner of Lauderdale and 5th. Presently, there's an unfinished structure without siding, and where there's small amounts of the original stone material are on the exterior. Remnant portions of the home with stone are proposed to be demolished. To provide some background on the property, in 1990, a survey, Glendale Stonehouses survey, was conducted to locate and identify of pre-1950 construction where native stone found in the vicinity was used as the primary building material. In this survey, this property was identified with National Register Status Code 5, which meant that it was ineligible for National Register, but still of local interest. In 2000, this property had building permits for minor alterations. Our records demonstrate that the Building and Safety Department had issued a letter to the owner of it at the time that the scope of the work that was allowed for the building permits was beyond what was allowed, and they had to observe that the cost and evaluation of the project exceeded 50%. Because 50% of the total wall and roof areas had been removed, this house as being proposed is reviewed by the zoning code as a new home and needs to comply with current regulations. As part of this variance application, a environmental initial study checklist was conducted, and a revised Glendale Stonehouse survey was included, which updated this property with status code 6Z of the California Historical Register, with California Historical Code 6Z, which means it's ineligible for National Register, California Register, or local designation through a survey evaluation. Also included with the initial study, staff had included mitigation measures to maintain the stone garage and the retaining wall as it exhibits the stone architecture, which demonstrates the development history of North Glendale. It's largely intact, it's mainly intact, so staff feels that mitigation to maintain the garage and the retaining wall would be a overall benefit for the community. And I'm going to go into analysis of this variance request. In order to reduce any additional adverse changes on the site, once again, the mitigation measure was included to preserve and maintain the garage. Any imposed conditions to modify or relocate this garage, staff believes it would contradict the mitigation measures. Well, it will be detrimental to the stone architecture which the garage exhibits. Practical difficulties and exceptional circumstances exist for the property because of the garage mostly remains intact. If the applicant were to, for example, enlarge the garage to accommodate the interior space, or and the roof to accommodate that area, or even to extend the width of the garage, it would compromise the original stone siding, which it identifies the unique quality that was identified in the stone houses survey. So even if the applicant were to demolish the garage, the stone architecture will be a loss. So staff also feels approval of the application would not be materially detrimental as the garage has existed for the past 80 years in its current location without any incident. The garage is accessed from 5th Avenue, which is identified by the circulation element of the general plan as a local street, which is the lowest volume vehicle traffic. And the provided widths and the interior dimensions are, although they're slightly substandard, the garage will only be utilized by the home occupants. It's not going to be utilized as if it was a retail space or a parking space where multiple users or multiple vehicles of different drivers will be going into and exiting from it. And it would be eventually be used by familiarity of a home occupant. While the garage is located in the setback within the street side setback on 5th Avenue, the 5th Avenue does exhibit a upsloping topography where the garage in its present state is slightly set into the slope there. So the visual impact of it being in the street side setback is reduced because if it's being set into the slope. Also, of its cladding material, stone, which is something of a natural texture, a natural look. So the impact of any visual look and feel down the neighborhood is successfully reduced. Staff feels granting of this request would not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance, as off-street parking will be provided, and the maintenance of the stone garage is a cultural benefit to the neighborhood. The stone garage demonstrates the development history of the northmost portion of the city, which utilized native stone found in the vicinity. Staff was able to justify all 4 required findings for this request and recommends approval. Staff is available for questions, also as well as the applicant. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. All right, why don't I have the applicant come up and do their presentation, and then I've got some questions.
Good morning, Mr. Kiesel. My name is Franco Noravian. My office is at 409 West Broadway, Glendale, California, 91204. I'm the architect on the project. I think staff did a very thorough job of analyzing the project, but would you like me to go through the findings?
Yes.
Okay. As far as practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship, as Mr. Joe mentioned, the garage, it's a stone garage and the retaining walls, stone retaining walls. We cannot touch them in any way because by today's codes, it will, if you touch it, that means it has to get demolished and you have to build a new garage. And because of its historic significance, we can't do that. So it's impossible to enlarge it, modify it in any way because of the nature of the engineering aspect of it, the way it's built. You can't add to a stone wall because with today's codes, they don't even accept that type of construction. So that's our hardship. What's unique about the property is also the fact that there's not too many properties left with stone architecture. And what we're trying to do, and the staff agrees, is to try to preserve that architecture. Why it would not be detrimental to the public welfare is because it's been there for so many years, and there's never been any problems with the garage or the retaining walls. There are many other homes in that immediate vicinity that have similar garages so close to the property line, as well as retaining walls. They're not all made out of stone. Some people have even gone ahead and replaced those retaining walls with modern block walls. But the nature of the topography in that area is that you need to have these retaining walls. The lots are small. You cannot have slopes. And that's just the way most other homes are built. So I don't see it being detrimental to the public welfare. And as far as why will granting the variance be in keeping with the objectives of the applicable regulations, as Mr. Joe mentioned, the 5th Street is a secondary or is a local street, not too much traffic, and there's plenty of street parking available on Lauderdale and on 5th Street. I've been to the site many times. There's never been an issue with parking, so you don't really need to have the setback, the garage setback, to be able to park there. And because it's basically a semi-subterranean garage, there is no impact of any issue with massing as far as the street is concerned. Do I have any other things? I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Could you move the garage?
No. You can't move it without demolishing it.
It's just physically impossible?
It is absolutely. It is impossible to move because the garage, the way it's built, it's pieces of stone that are together.
Okay.
And there's nothing holding them. I mean, if you move any portion of it, then you've got a structure. Let's say it's impossible to move it for sure.
Is it stone on the inside?
Yes, the entire wall is built out of stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's impossible to move it.
Okay.
And even if you said, well, why don't we enlarge it to one side? What I was trying to explain is that if you take down one wall of the garage and say, okay, now I'm going to add to it with, let's say, block wall or wood or anything, then the building code would require you to analyze the entire structure.
Okay.
And it's impossible because there is no formula to engineer anything for stone.
So the stone is not just the sort of the facing material.
No.
It
is the building.
structure.
There is nothing else other than the
Okay.
stone. Yeah.
Okay. Was construction of another garage explored as an option?
Yes. The only way to do another garage would be a detached garage is impossible because of the setbacks. If you were to put a detached garage, let's say from Lauderdale, right, that would be the only other option. You won't be able to build a house anymore. The only way is to incorporate an attached garage, right? Let's say build a two-story house with a garage, a subterranean garage below and a house above, right? That is possible, but number one, it's unnecessary grade. A lot of grading has to be done to accomplish that, right? Because you have to excavate the site. And number two, what we're trying to save is the stone walls. If you had an 18-foot driveway leading to a two-car garage, 50% of the stone walls on Lauderdale will be lost by doing that.
The stone wall extends from the existing garage all the way up the corner, all the way up to that walkway?
Exactly.
The entire...
And the entire thing, yeah. And furthermore, what would happen is it would look really awkward and I think unacceptable for the design staff to have stone walls that would then return into regular walls. Because as you excavate the site for a driveway, you would have to build retaining walls on the sides, right? And so now you have a condition where...
Like right up here.
Correct. And then you have a condition where a block wall will have to come and meet a stone wall.
Okay.
And that's just not acceptable, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Are you going to have to do any repair work or changes to the existing garage?
Not to the garage, no. The house is going to be almost completely demolished. Maybe 25% of it we'll be able to save, but the garage...
What's out there now?
Yeah, what the unpermitted house that was constructed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that what's shown there? What you're wanting to do?
Correct.
Or what's there?
No. That's what we're proposing. The plans show what we're proposing.
Okay.
The pictures show what's there.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it? I didn't look at the house real closely when I was out.
Mm-hmm.
It looks fairly similar.
Yes, it is. But the main thing that we're changing is it looks kind of like a two-story house because of the volumes, and with our meetings with design staff, it was discussed that that would not be acceptable, so we need to lower the roof line.
Okay.
And so that's basically once we touch the roof, then the structure has to get redone.
Okay. But to your knowledge now, you are not going to have to do anything with the existing garage?
No. Maybe replace the garage doors, if anything. I mean, we don't have to, but if that becomes a design review condition to replace the doors.
Have you checked with building and safety on...
Building and safety doesn't have... the requirements for garage door size are set by zoning.
Right, but I mean, does building and safety have any concerns with the garage as it is now?
No, they will not, because it's a permit. There is permits. So anytime there is a permit on a structure, it doesn't meet today's codes, but it's grandfathered in because it's a permitted garage. So there is no issues as far as building and safety.
Okay. And you're not proposing to do anything at your option?
No.
Okay.
No.
You're not going to be required to do anything, but you're also not proposing to do anything at your...
No. We'd like to keep it exactly as is.
Okay.
And like I said, the only thing is if during design review or plan check the issue of the garage doors, maybe we'll just replace the garage doors, but that's it.
Those garage doors look pretty...
Old.
Original?
Yeah, the original. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we replace them, it would have to be, I'm sure, with something that matches it pretty closely.
Yeah. Do you know, are the garage doors, were they discussed as any historic importance, or is it actually the stone structure?
The garage doors were not discussed. It was mostly the main thing is the stone material as identified in the
Okay.
in the survey.
So that's the most important is the stone. The garage doors may or may not be. Probably not. Okay. All right. I think that was it in terms of my questions. So.
Okay. This is, I myself have been involved in this project for 3 years, since June of '08.
Okay.
And I know my clients have been involved before that. And all the construction that was done without permits is from the previous owner who passed away. So it's it's been in that shape for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, it might be good to do some cleanup work.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that we would appreciate anything you can do to expedite the decision process.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Is there anything else you have to say, Mr. Joe?
Nothing on staff's part.
Okay. Then I believe I will conclude the hearing. So the public hearing is officially closed. Thanks for coming, and it is now 10 o'clock. Thanks a lot.